Studio Pierrot lost 40 million yen on their very first anime. A couple of projects later, they received mail with death threats and razor blades on them. They were always operating in the red, yet the company endured their financial troubles and evolved to become a company that would produce world-famous titles such as Naruto and Bleach, always betting on themselves. Today, I want to talk to you about the people of Studio Pierrot, the story of struggle, and the story of the old generation paving the way for the younger generation. Let's first talk about the late founder, Yuji Nunokawa, who actually got his start drawing illustrations for ad agencies straight after graduating Nippon Design School. Needless to say, he left that ad agency job. It wasn't too long before he found his next job. There, in an ad in the classified section of the newspapers that said, "Recruiting people who loves drawing," where he made his first step into the anime industry as a contract worker for animation company Hoei Productions, learning the ins and outs of animation. He also worked at other animation studios too, including Mushi Productions, an animation studio founded by the godfather of manga, Osamu Tezuka, and Tatsunoko Productions, home of Gatchaman and Kushern, and many other well-known animated shows. Nunokawa came to know about the struggles of being an animator and developed a love-hate relationship with the trade. Always devoting your life to your deadlines, the low pay, the thankless job. He promised himself he would never create a production company, but people lie to themselves all the time. Gakken, a publishing company that specializes in educational media, reached out to Nunokawa and asked him, "Would you be willing to create a company to animate a 52-episode anime?" Nunokawa let his excitement overwhelm himself, and he said yes. And just like that, he became the person he vowed he would never become. He named the company Pierrot after the clowns he saw at the circus that visited his hometown. He was infatuated by the fact that these clowns would entertain people while concealing their true nature. At the beginning, Studio Pierrot was a team of 4 animators who had no company management skill whatsoever, all of them coming from Tatsunoko. Nunokawa was scared, but at the same time excited to take on a new path in life. And The Wonderful Adventures of Nils was his chance to prove himself that he was right to start his own company. But he's about to find out that he's bitten off more than he can chew. The Wonderful Adventures of Nils is a story originally written by Swedish author Selma Lagerlöf. The National Teachers Association commissioned Lagerlöf to write a story that would teach the children of Sweden the geography of the country. Studio Pierrot's anime adaptation was well received in Sweden, but the development of the series was a disaster. The Swedish embassy sent photographs of Sweden to Pierrot animators for their reference. But Nunokawa believed this wasn't enough to capture the beauty of their country. So he asked art director Mitsuki Nakamura and other staff members to go to Sweden for 15 days, a very costly expense. The anime featured many types of birds, and in order to properly capture their movement, Nunokawa decided to use more frames than the average anime episode. As an animator himself, he put art first before the company, and used as much as 15,000 frames just for one episode. And by doing so, ate a huge chunk out of their budget, spending 1.5 times more than what was initially calculated. Because of this, the company lost 40 million yen in their first project. When adjusted for inflation, that comes out to just about $270,000. He could overhear his peers shouting at him he should have concentrated on being the president. Nunokawa lost heart and regretted starting Pierrot. In order to make things right, Nunokawa went to Gakken, bowed as hard as he could, and begged for a loan. The loan would cover his employees' pay, as well as to fund their next project, Miss Machiko, a production that was both enjoyed and hated at the same time, which I'll get to in just a minute. Miss Machiko is a story about Machiko Mai, a young teacher who often finds herself in accidental and inappropriate situations with her students. I won't say more than that. You can look it up yourself if you're that curious. But, due to the inappropriate content, the Parent-Teacher Association in Kyoto formed a group called the Association to Stop the Miss Machiko Broadcast. Despite the protests, the show performed really well, achieving an average rating of 20% on TV Tokyo. Miss Machiko was broadcasted in concert with another anime produced by Pierrot, the famous romance comedy Urusei Yatsura by Rumiko Takahashi, who would later create Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha. Urusei Yatsura is the story of a lecherous man named Ataru Moroboshi who wins, in the game of tag, the affection of an alien named Lum. Everyone at Pierrot was excited for this new series because of its already huge following. It was immensely popular at the time. One problem though, the project was decided on August 15, 1981, but the show was set to broadcast in October of that same year, giving the company only 45 days to start churning out episodes. Mamoru Oshii, who wasn't the famous director he is now, made his break with Urusei Yatsura as chief director. Thing is though, he made a lot of changes to the series, which angered a lot of the original work's fans, the author Takahashi herself, the producers, and even the TV stations wanted Oshii to either stick to the original work or be removed from the production. But President Nunokawa believed in Oshii, which was hard to do at first because of the audience reception. Pierrot received death threats, razor blades, and hour-long rants on cassette tapes of people complaining about the anime series. But these complaints would eventually die down in numbers once Urusei Yatsura somehow won the hearts of its viewers about 6 months into the broadcast, reaching a viewership average of 27%. It became so big and popular that someone broke into Pierrot's studios and stole original cells. When the thief was caught, it was revealed that he tried to sell the cells for 300,000 yen each. When the cells were returned, they were in really bad condition, all beaten up. Nunokawa wanted to throw them away, but the police asked if they could have it, knowing their value. Oshii's direction made Urusei Yatsura a success. Miss Machiko and Urusei Yatsura brought Pierrot into the spotlight. Everyone wanted to work there. As a result, Pierrot gained even more animators, both young and talented. The new generation was coming, but once again, Pierrot was in the red with Urusei Yatsura thanks to its production cost. But Nunokawa had a plan. Pierrot was founded by animation directors, so they knew how to create impactful works. Now it was time to learn how to make money. It was time for Nunokawa to wear his president hat. He wanted to take a page out of Tezuka Osamu's book and created an anime based on their own original work, titled Creamy Mami, the Magical Angel. A work that helped transform Pierrot into a production company to a production company that did financing. It all began when Yomiko Advertising went to Pierrot and asked him to create a magical girl series. Yomiko often worked with Tatsunoko Production, and of course, since Nunokawa came from there, he had a working relationship with someone from Yomiko. And just like that, Yomiko got a big toy sponsor to help produce Creamy Mami, and this toy company, Bandai that is, had one request: that Creamy Mami transform using a stick, aka the toy they were going to market. The Urusei Yatsura anime, despite its initial reception, became a hit because it was already based on an existing work with a huge reader base. But Creamy Mami wasn't, and yet it still surpassed all expectations. The toys were very popular and sold well across Japan. And that's not all. While Creamy Mami was aimed at the female demographic, the anime also had a huge male following. The ratings exceeded 20%, and the show was broadcast on Friday evenings at 6 p.m., a time when single-digit ratings were the norm for even news programs. From here, Pierrot began creating more magical girl shows, working with advertising agencies and toy sponsors to sell toys, keeping a roof over their offices. Pierrot became a popular studio to work with. But the hype for magical girl shows began to fade. Pierrot did want to dabble in the mecha anime scene, just like Mobile Suit Gundam, but that didn't go so well. But Nunokawa was always planning something. Sometime in the 80s, Nunokawa went to Los Angeles and met up with Marty Murphy, an animator for Disney who also contributed to The Wonderful Adventure of Nils. Nunokawa wanted to see production on Disney animated films, but unfortunately, no production was happening at the time. In fact, Disney was on the verge of bankruptcy. During his trip though, Nunokawa was able to connect with Willie Ito, the man in charge of Disney's merchandise. He taught Nunokawa everything he knew, and the most important lesson Nunokawa learned was character goods should be 100% faithful to the anime. And thanks to Ito's help, Nunokawa and his team decided to create Pierrot Project, a company that would handle licensed works, in order to generate more profit for Pierrot. Around this time, Shonen Jump's battle manga was becoming very popular, and a lot of them were produced by Toei Animation. Fist of the North Star, Saint Seiya, Dragon Ball. It was almost as if Jump and Toei were a match made in heaven, until Pierrot proved the world wrong. Pierrot acquired a Shonen Jump series called Kimagure Orange Road, another romantic comedy like Urusei Yatsura, a series that was originally just a one-shot film by Pierrot and Toho, but would eventually receive a full television series. This series was another hit, and proved to Shueisha that Toei wasn't the only studio in Japan that could helm Shonen Jump titles. Nunokawa joked that Pierrot took on titles no other studios would be willing to adapt, which was a major advantage to them, since they landed on what would be their biggest title in the 90s. The biggest game changer to the company even, YuYu Hakusho. YuYu Hakusho is considered a major title now, but when the original work, the manga, was still in its early stages, it had a niche following. Studio Pierrot struggled finding sponsors because Yoshihiro Togashi wasn't really popular at the time. There was no star power vouching for it. It was almost dropped as a series, until Nunokawa's secretary, Mari Kitayama, pushed for the production. While toys were one of the major moneymakers for sponsors, there was another type of product that was becoming all the rage: video games. Thanks to Nintendo, home video game consoles were a hit, and the majority of households had them. And YuYu Hakusho had a lot of games. Fighting games, a scrolling shooter, an RPG. Needless to say, Pierrot made a profit, and the success of YuYu Hakusho allowed the company to reinvest in itself. In the following years, Pierrot gained even more Shonen Jump titles. While many of these Jump titles weren't successful, level, the relationship between Pierrot and Shueisha flourished in the 90s. Behind the scenes, Studio Pierrot was undergoing major changes. Many of its former employees, like the directors, became freelance. Nunokawa wanted the younger generation of employees to become the new pillar of support for the company. He appointed Michiyuki Honma the head of the planning and sales department, essentially picking his successor. Honma was still in his late 20s and early 30s, and he never had a good track record either because the projects he was a part of often tanked. There was even a specific request to remove him from the Kimagure Orange Road project, but Nunokawa never gives up on people, and he's always willing to give people another chance. After all, Nunokawa's had his fair share of failures. Honma, as the head of planning and sales, was tasked with the job of doing what Nunokawa does: plan projects. At the time, the industry was undergoing a generational shift, and many of the producers at TV stations and ad agencies, as well as the editors-in-chief of magazines, were around Honma's age. So it was up to Honma to create new contacts within the business. And what did his hard work help Studio Pierrot acquire? The Naruto series. And I'm sure you know how popular it is. And not just Naruto, they also got Bleach, two of Jump's big 3 series at the time. While Nunokawa made a lot of mistakes, choosing to believe in his team was always the choice that helped Studio Pierrot become what it is today. He passed away in 2022, but he left behind a company that will continue to evolve as time changes. Until next time, see ya.